Tell me about your guys' solutions and tech stack a little bit more. 'Cause I know that privacy, fairness, those are key components for you guys. I'm curious how you apply that.
The environment is the secure enclave. The governance of that secure enclave happens with a master secret that's broken into various shards.
These institutions wanting to trade at spot, or are they wanting to kind of combine things like with crypto and perps and futures? And
Most institutions were more interested in touching spot BTC or ETH. Now you see a much larger appetite for perps, which makes sense.
you see them wanting to see what other people are doing as well, just to kind of get ideas and reformulate their strategies, or do they just want to do everything in-house?
We've actually built a product around this concept. That the product is called Alpha Strategies. Alpha Strategies essentially is an account on Enclave that's run by professional trading firms.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode here of the BlockHash Podcast, your number one resource for all that is happening across the emerging tech space. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. Today, I have on another wonderful guest, Phil Wirtjes, CEO of Enclave Global, the Cayman regulated trading platform for Enclave Markets. Phil, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you on. How's it going?
Awesome. It's going well. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine. Excited to have you on today. And excited to learn more about what you guys are doing with Enclave. I guess maybe the best way to kick this off is tell us a bit about yourself and maybe your background and how you kind of got into this industry, what kind of sparked your curiosity, and then how did that kind of also evolve and eventually lead to Enclave? What's all the in-between for you?
Yeah, it's sort of a windy story. So happy to go into a bit of detail here. I would call it I would call it a non-traditional path. I don't know if anyone's path to crypto is quote unquote traditional, but yeah, exactly. But mine started basically with a career in management consulting for startup health tech companies. So I was always very early stage in growth and strategy and marketing. And this is back in the early 2010s and sort of into 2015, 2016, 2017. And that's when my interest in crypto really started to pick up. I was in, 1 or 2 years out of grad school at the time. And just at that point, interested mostly in Bitcoin. And anyway, doing sort of my consulting career and participating in crypto at the time, the price of Bitcoin hit, 20,000 at one point around that time, and then quickly went back down. And so sort of okay, the sort of speculative side of my personality is hooked on what is crypto, what are we doing, why is it, so volatile, how does it all work? And didn't really act on it then, but that, sort of participating more and more from a personal standpoint. And then in 2020-ish, I met some core team members from this new blockchain that was about to launch called Avalanche, and super interested in sort of why this blockchain was different, what was unique about the consensus protocol, and sort of the various sort of possibilities in the future that something like that technology could unlock. And sort of stayed in touch with a couple of the team members. And that's what led into this opportunity with Enclave. Basically, Enclave is a company that was incubated by Ava Labs, and they had an idea for building a new type of exchange. And I think this is in 2021. And they wanted somebody to come on, sort of a jack of all trades, general management consultant type skill set to help project manage the stand-up of the team and get new members on board. And basically start to build this from a concept into a business. And so, had sort of invested in those relationships with the Ava Labs team, felt like a good fit, had the opportunity to say yes to it. So I actually did a hop over from some of the health tech startups that I was doing and brought that skill set into what sort of project plans need to be in place to build the team, to build the tech, to put a go-to-market strategy together, and start sort of to turn this into a business. And that's when it all started in 2021, started to hire the team, brought on a CEO who came from a background in traditional finance at Two Sigma and crypto native from Paxos and running the ItBit exchange, and really started to build the team from there. Engineering teams next, built the tech. And really all of that activity was built around sort of like one vision, one goal, which is trading platforms up until then at crypto were relatively unreliable. And part of that is just the volatility in crypto. But part of it is you didn't have any guarantees or transparency into what the core team might be doing, particularly for centralized exchanges. And even if you believed in the platform and used the platform, there was always the chance that there could be a bad actor on the inside of the team, and the money's gone, or customer funds are being rehypothecated, or code's being written in a way that provides certain privileges to that insider or that team in a way that sort of puts the user in a bad spot. And it's funny. So, we built this exchange with that in mind. We built everything within a secure enclave. We used Intel SGX's hardware chip to help provide some of that privacy and transparency and fairness, really. And so I can go into more details about like what the actual tech stack looks like. But I'll sort of end this long-winded intro by saying, like, right at the time when we were starting to launch is when FTX happened. And so it was like there was no point, or there was never a better point to sort of push and believe in this vision of like, hey, exchanges need to do better and be better. And so, at its core, that's sort of why we built Enclave and what we've tried to build on over the last 4 or so years.
Yeah, I was going to say FTX is a good example of a centralized exchange having poor transparency and doing unscrupulous things behind the scenes. And yeah, that is a thing that's been a problem historically in the space and needs to be cleaned up. And I think is important, especially for institutions, to give them that vote of confidence and being able to put their money in a place like that. This industry is crazy enough as it is. You don't need the exchanges to be crazy too. So I think that's an important thing to note.
Yeah, I think, and I'm sure we'll chat about this a little bit later too, but like that's part of what you're seeing in this transition from, off-chain exchanges or centralized exchanges to more on-chain trading. And this is the rise of Hyperliquid, and Lighter does a really great job now. It's another big one. And it's part of what Enclave's, attempting to do. And we sort of have a solution that sits somewhere in the middle of the two, because trading on-chain has pros and cons, just like trading in a centralized exchange has pros and cons. And obviously that's up to each user to make their choice. But this is sort of a third solution that is helping to transition to on-chain markets, but doing it in a way that's a little bit more hybrid in nature. But anyway, that type of, I'll call it, lack of trust and sort of like the black box is part of what brought about the launch of Enclave.
Yeah, tell me about your guys' solutions and tech stack a little bit more. I know that privacy, fairness, those are key components for you guys. I'm curious how you apply that at a level that allows institutions to enter the space and enter the space with a bit more confidence.
Yeah, and I want to put a pin and come back to is like what does it mean and what's sort of required for an institution to be confident in using a platform of any type, because that has also changed a lot today than what was true in 2021, 2022 as well. So that's certainly an interesting conversation, but focusing specifically on like, what does the tech look like and how does this concept of an enclave actually work? So basically what it is an isolated environment in which, once approved, the code runs on its own. It doesn't need like constant maintenance for people to sort of always update it. And then you ship updates to the code on some periodic basis. However, essentially, the environment is the secure enclave. The governance of that secure enclave happens with a master secret that's broken into various shards. Those shards are shared with third parties. We call them attesters. It's sort of a version of a similar but different implementation of the technology that the Avalanche to Ethereum bridge used. They called them wardens. The name isn't so important. The concept that like, hey, these are trusted third parties that are public. They're able to be verified, and they own equal shares of the master secret that governs what happens, inside the enclave, is the important part. And so we work with, there's a system of 4 attesters, of which we're one of them. And then the Enclave development team, essentially like Enclave Labs, basically pushes software updates that then these testers are able to audit and take a look at before it's pushed into production and the code goes live and updates are made and features are improved, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's sort of the concept behind how there's more trust and transparency. The privacy aspect, I think, is really important because it happens in the enclave. So I mentioned earlier, we have like a hybrid solution. Basically, deposits and withdrawals are all on chain. So those are printed to the Explorer. You can see it on the blockchain. Money went in, money comes out. Within the enclave, your order flow now becomes encrypted. It's important, and it sort of feeds into the institutional conversation. Previously, if you were trading on chain, basically any transactions within a block, because of the time to finalize that block, can be reordered, and there was a business made out of this. This is what MEV essentially is potentially reordering transactions in a block to profit from. That generally disadvantages like the everyday trader who doesn't have the means or the knowledge or the know-how to basically maximize the potential of MEV. And so we said, hey, look, executing off-chain in this secure enclave basically is like when your order's in, that's when it gets executed. There is no like front running, there's no sandwich attacks, there's no other type of like transaction manipulation that basically puts you at a disadvantageous spot for getting your order executed. The other thing that institutions are much more interested in is because all the trading happens in the enclave, that order flow is encrypted. If you're building up a large position, or let's say you're getting out of a large position, that's not necessarily like printed publicly, and opening yourself up to other whales or people who are looking to arbitrage off certain moves. Because your move's not public, it creates better execution for you as the institution as you're looking to build or get out of a position. And that's ultimately what users are after, traders are after, is like best execution on their trades. And so that's some of the benefits that particular implementation of this technology results in, and sort of why we're pretty bullish still, 4 years later, on bringing this type of trading to markets.
And then are these institutions wanting to trade at spot, or are they wanting to like kind of combine things like with crypto and perps and futures? And 'cause I know there's so many different ways to trade these days. I'm curious, what maybe strategies they're looking for, if they want to have like some, one click all encompassing solution for some of these things, or if they have their own strategies they want to deploy. What are you kind of seeing from them in terms of their demand for trading?
It really depends, and obviously it's really changed over the last 4 years as well, where most institutions were more interested in touching spot BTC or ETH. Now you see a much larger appetite for perps, which makes sense. In traditional markets, the derivatives market is multiples higher than the spot markets. It would only make sense for that type of activity to transition over to crypto, and frankly, that's part of like. I'll say a more favorable regulatory environment is allowing for crypto markets to more mimic now traditional markets, which is a good thing. And you're seeing institutions now be interested in participating in crypto assets and crypto markets in the way that they participate in TradFi markets. The sort of next level is, the tokenization of everything is a term that you hear a lot of people talking about and mentioning, but there is a lot more interest in tokenized equities, in other type of real world assets being tokenized and put on chain and traded with leverage. So bringing perps to trading of any type of asset, commodities, currencies, whatever the case may be. And so that's sort of the trend that markets are moving towards, largely driven by institutional participation in sort of like that broadening slice of crypto assets. And we'll talk about the future in a bit, but like I think that momentum is only going to pick up over the next 3 years, and it's sort of where we are building towards, and obviously a lot of exchanges are as well.
Where are these institutions generally coming from? Are these global institutions? Are they US based, Europe based, Asia based?
All over. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely all over. It sort of depends like on the jurisdiction that a firm is based on, and what sort of like rules and regulations they need to follow as a trading firm based on where they're domiciled. But it's truly a global game. So it's Europe, it's Asia, it's the US as well. And I think what's interesting as this world of crypto assets opens up is it unlocks a lot more strategies that these firms, if they're coming over from TradFi, or if they're a crypto native firm that brings TradFi talent over and builds, like executing a basis trade, for example, is a fairly simple trade, but pick your average retail crypto user like has no idea how to do it. So like I wouldn't be able to appropriately or accurately sort of manage a basis trade over a long time period. And these firms are seeing like, oh, well, in this new asset class, like there's ways to bring these traditional tried and true proven strategies over and create a profit, create a yield. And so that's sort of like what you're seeing interest in as institutions come in, and then you're seeing projects sort of build to support that in a meaningful way. So again, I think that's probably the most exciting thing, and maybe not the sexiest thing, but like the most exciting thing as we think about markets over the next 3 years.
Okay. And then when we say institutions, sometimes that can be a pretty big word and include a lot of different players. Are these funds? Are these banks? Are these asset managers? Like, what do they typically look like?
Yeah, I would say like all of the above. But really what you're seeing is like professional traders, a higher level of sophistication. Whereas maybe you had a level of sophistication in certain, accounts you might follow on crypto Twitter. But for the most part, there are people like me who's like, oh, what's this leverage thing? Like, I can take some money and get 50x on it. Like, that's great. Look how much I'm trading now, without really understanding risk management, without understanding, market signals, how momentum works, what various indicators might mean or not mean. So you're just seeing a level of sophistication in traders, which generally means they represent a larger pool of capital that they're putting into the markets. And that's like what I would call institutional dollars, is like actually a dollar amount that's above, what you or I or whoever, sorry, I shouldn't say you. I don't know. Maybe you're a whale here. Exactly. But like what your average retail trader might put into the market and trade on.
Interesting. Yeah. And institutional adoption, I think, continues to grow in this space. Obviously they're moving beyond spot, like they're fully into derivatives in all kinds of different fashion and taking leverage and playing with larger amounts of money and really having impacts on the market. And I'm sure they're also, starting to demand certain types of quality when it comes to execution and stronger controls in general. Other than what you've already mentioned, like, are you seeing demand for anything in particular that they want in the future, or is it more or less being able to take like with the model you have with Enclave and being able to replicate that in other places, or what do they want the most to focus on? 'Cause they have the cap.
Execution always comes first, and that's like a function of a couple different things. Like one is obviously liquidity. Having enough liquidity in the markets, like, drives everything. How tight is that liquidity, and like how deep is that liquidity, is obviously another like super critical thing. And then I think the thing that we're seeing a lot more, which is a great sign, is more like features, I'll say, or like tools that more sophisticated actors are used to trading in traditional markets being over to crypto, instead of just like smashing buy button and hoping for the best. Like having various types of things available to them, various order types, ways to get into and out of a trade, ways to cancel the trade and prioritize that cancel of a trade if XYZ happens. Certain having like executional safeguards, I'll say. So like, hey, if your markets are down, or like if spreads get too wide, like my orders are automatically canceled. Like those type of user experience as a sophisticated trader is sort of becoming more and more common and more requested from exchanges. And you're seeing people build exchanges that know and have a history of trading traditional markets. And so that like convergence between what an exchange provides in traditional markets and what an exchange used to provide in crypto, but now is sort of like being asked for as table stakes in crypto, is getting closer and closer together, which to me is a good thing. But that's sort of more of like what institutions are demanding versus like we need to trade, you know, the top 1,000 coins. Like really most firms trade a relatively narrow band, maybe the top 100, maybe the top 200, but even that is like getting pretty far out on sort of the risk curve. So it's not necessarily like we need to be able to trade anything and everything, but like we want the most sophisticated approach to being able to trade the things that we do trade.
Here's an interesting question, because in the general retail market, there's like a large growing demand for being able to follow, I guess, like trading influencers. If you could put a word on it, like copy traders and stuff like that, to kind of see like what good traders are doing independently and their strategies and what they're putting together. I know a lot of institutions probably have strategies that are proprietary and they want privacy and they want protections there, but I've never really asked this, but I'm just curious, like, do you see them wanting to see what other people are doing as well, like just to kind of get ideas and reformulate their strategies, or do they just want to do everything in-house and privately?
No, I think we've actually built a product around this concept. The product is called Alpha Strategies. Alpha Strategies essentially is an account on Enclave that's run by professional trading firms that retail users are able to deposit their dollars into, and now they essentially own a stake of, the P&L that is created by that account. That account follows a tried and true alpha or a tried and true strategy that the trading firm has perfected over, 2-3, pick your timeline. And the firm will actually post their prospectus or like all of their details that say like, hey, here's the back testing that we did. Here's the performance over 3 years. Here's like the parameters of this particular strategy, the drawdown, the Sharp, the Sortino. Like here's essentially like the risk reward profile that you could expect over a long time frame from how we execute this strategy. And so you're informed on what you're putting your dollars into. And we've actually seen pretty good traction in these markets. And it's a thing that we're excited to continue to build out as more and more assets are being brought on chain and able to be traded. So right now, one of our more successful alpha strategies is just focused on BTC and ETH. One of the newest ones that we're launching is BTC gold and tokenized oil. And so you start to introduce more correlation, more like naturally hedged strategies that have the ability to perform over a longer time frame instead of chasing a 3x by Friday. And I think our thesis, and I think you're seeing it play out too, is like more and more traders who traditionally have been like me. I think I'm probably the best use case of like, love leverage. Let's, 3x by Friday, 10x by Friday. Are seeing like, hey, that doesn't really work. Like I actually have no edge. I have negative edge in the market. And it's probably the best recipe to lose my money. So if I get more patient and I participate in one of these strategies that has a longer time frame, it's across different assets. It's not necessarily just trying to do one thing, but it's sort of hedging some of the risk that it's taking. It has tighter risk management than I would have. Like that's a better way for me to trade at least some portion of my portfolio. And I think you're seeing, things like vaults. Hyperliquids has a vault, Lighter has a vault. All of their public pools replicate this concept to some degree. And so obviously, you can look at those platforms and those pools there for the traction. It's definitely becoming a more popular way to participate in markets. And exchanges themselves are participating in a larger degree now.
And then looking at the future of private trading infrastructure, like how do you see that, execution environments shaping up for the next generation of market structure across crypto? I'm sure a lot of the things that you guys are doing now and seeing now with institutions is going to lay a pretty solid foundation just generally for everybody and kind of like up the ante of what the experience is like on exchanges. And I've been in the space long enough to remember when it was just click this, sell that. And it was very limited and it was very like unsure of like if it's even there or not, or I've had bad experiences too. But it's come a long way and it's evolved quite a bit today. And I'm just curious further down the line, what do you see this kind of shaping into?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a markets perspective, what I see it shaping into is like being able to trade everything with, uh, on chain, but also being able to trade everything with some perpetual futures element. So like a term that's been used a lot is the perpification of everything. And I think you'll see that happen where perps will be offered on a number of assets that um, aren't on chain right now, but will be soon over the next couple of years. Tokenized equities, I think, are sort of the next step, and I think it's a huge market. It's super exciting. But perps on tokenized equities is certainly a huge growth area for a number of people. You'll see more and more assets come on chain and have derivatives offered for them, and so that's one thing that's really exciting. I think simultaneously there's this like movement back towards privacy, and I say movement back towards it because like privacy was one of like the core tenets of Bitcoin and crypto in general. I sort of feel like season one of True Detective, where like time is a flat circle, and like we're coming back to privacy now. Is like, hey, it is this like super important thing, and um, obviously it's something that we at Enclave believe in with the implementation of the secure Enclave. But I think you're seeing a lot of like really cool event innovation occur around privacy as well. It's certainly been amplified by the run up in Zcash. But Avalanche, for example, is doing a lot of really cool stuff around like encrypted ERCs and how to apply that and like what does privacy mean on chain. Avalanche certainly isn't alone, but I think doing great work there. So you're seeing more and more, and I think in 2026 you'll see a lot of like really cool implementations of ideas for what exactly does like on-chain privacy mean as it relates to trading. So those are a couple areas that I think are like super, super bullish on as we think about markets in 26 and beyond.
Yeah, I think privacy coins are very fascinating once again. And I think they were just ahead of their time. And there is a bad stigma behind them because of what they could be used for. But in reality, like they're fantastic technology, especially ZK proofs and everything that can be applied to today. And you're seeing a lot more interest kind of like circle back to it now, which I think is awesome because I'd like to see that incorporated more. Are we seeing institutions taking a liking to them a bit more as well? Like what they could be used for in terms of positive aspects across the space, or maybe what they could.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Sorry, not to jump in,
No,
but
you're
like
good. Go for it.
it's such like a resounding yes. Like I go back to one of the things that I mentioned is like, hey, we built Enclave, and like one of the value props is there's actually some good discussion on it earlier this year with like the Jelly Jelly event on Hyperliquid is like, is it beneficial to have your trade be public? And I would argue no. It's actually, if you're that trader, it's like one of the worst things that could possibly happen because you're basically telling the market like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Feel free to like take my strategy and front run it. And so institutions, at least from a markets perspective, like want to hold their alpha and make sure that it's private so that others can't act before they get the full benefit of whatever their idea is. Um, and whatever implementation or like way to inject privacy into that like institutional mindset, it's only a positive because it basically protects the alpha of whatever that institution is doing. So like, yes, you're already seeing a ton of interest, and you're going to continue to see like massive amounts of interest in protecting the alpha or privacy.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm gonna have to buy some Zcash once again. Yeah, Phil. So, what are you guys focused on heading into 2026 then with Enclave? Any new products and services you want to offer with the market side? Any updates? Any announcements? Milestones? What should people keep an eye out for?
Yeah, no announcements yet, but I'll just say one thing that we're like particularly bullish on and have some exciting things coming is around the concept of like the perpification of everything. Again, I think tokenized equities are sort of like the next step, and we're super bullish on like what that future looks like. And so we're working on some things there. we're also pretty excited about this idea of connecting retail traders to more sophisticated tools to trade and making it like stupid simple to do so. Again, like I myself am probably the best use case. I could describe to you what a basis trade is, or like what mean reversion means, but actually going out and like making that a reality day to day in the market over low time frame, middle time frame, high time frame type of horizons, like I would be lost from an execution standpoint. But these professionals are not lost. They know exactly what to do. And so this concept of alpha strategies, I think we're super bullish on improving both from a UX standpoint, really trying to make it like one click easy to execute a basis trade or participate in a basis trade, even if you're not doing the execution yourself, as well as like opening up the funnel on what goes into these strategies. So like what assets are available for these strategies to apply to. So that those are, I think are super, super bullish concept that we're pushing hard at. We have some exciting things planned on the roadmap. Again, no official announcements yet, but I would say like stay tuned for the next 3 months because this is an area that's going to blow up, and we're certainly working on some pretty exciting stuff there.
You need to create a shirt that says "Purpification of everything."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Write it on my tombstone at some point here. It's famous words to go out with.
Yeah, well, you might be right about it. I do think everything will get purpified at some point. It's easier to package things for people and create strategies around it. But I'm curious to see what this kind of looks like in the future. Are you attending any events, conferences, engagements? There's a million in this space, but just any that you're eyeballing.
That's the thing is like the big ones are always, token is always a big one. There's so many that like my schedule has moved from like I used to go to every conference, and now it's like if I can skip as many as possible, like that's more of the priority here. But at the same time, it's also one of the best ways to get out and meet new projects and chat with potential partners and sort of push growth and go to market and business development. So I wouldn't say I have any that like absolutely hitting, but I'll be out on the road a little bit as we think about 2026 and what that conference cycle looks like.
Yeah, I love the conferences in the space. They're fun and they're lively, but we need more like smaller, more intimate gatherings where people can kind of like chat, because every time I go to one, it's like there's just talk after talk after talk and panel after panel, and I have nothing against them, but I feel like the value comes in between all those things, like the water jug conversations or the offsite sit down and have a beer and chat, like seem to yield a lot more value for a lot of people than even the actual speakers that are supposed to be attending and the headliners. And I feel like it's more of like a show and a circus than it is, getting to engage more intimately. So I think there needs to be more of that in the space. So hopefully there can be like more micro events. I think that'd be more beneficial.
Yeah, like highly curated events. I think that they definitely exist, and you'll see, in my opinion, more and more of them, and those are worth hitting. To your point, just the exposure that you get to some of the best minds in the industry, and like a smaller, more personal setting is like irreplaceable value. So the more that we see those pop up, the more that we'll try to attend them for sure.
Yeah, if I could go to a small event and I could meet a project, a lawyer, an accountant, a banker, a VC all in one place, like that's far more beneficial than going for 3 days and not knowing which has happened.
Yeah, I feel like in crypto, that's just talking to one person. Like everybody has 8 different hats that they wear. But I hear you, and we share the same sentiment.
Yeah, 100%. And then where can people go to learn more about Enclave? Do you guys have on the website?
You can go to
blog,
enclave.trade for our platform. Our docs are up there as well. So you can go into the technology and sort of the architecture and implementation and sort of like the why behind it, as well as learn about how things actually happen on our platform. Every exchange is a little bit different on how they calculate, certain things. All of it's sort of like directionally the same, but it's important to understand the nuance. So our docs are available there as well. Markets that are upcoming, markets that were recently launched, new features, new products, all of it, sort of included on enclave.trade. So that's where I would direct you. or our Twitter site at Enclave Markets. Also, is obviously staying on top of announcements and things like that.
Sweet. And then if anyone wants to connect with you, do you have a X? Do you have a LinkedIn, or where can people do that?
Yeah. I'm available on X at P Wirtjes. So first initial, last name. Happy to sort of like put it in whatever summary here as well. DMs are always open. Love to have a conversation. We're pretty open-minded when it comes to chatting about projects and ways to partner. So super open when it comes to DMs. Let's chat.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it's been great chatting with you today too. Great conversation. Learned a lot about what you guys are doing with Enclave and the institutional side of the trading space, and excited to see what you guys do here in 2026. And hopefully we can find some time and meet up as well, and maybe do another episode too in person.
Maybe somewhere. In Vegas at a Knights game.
Maybe in Vegas.
Yeah. That's a great invite. Okay, I'll be there. Thank you.
Yeah, come through anytime.
Cool, man. Thanks for making time today and having me on. Really appreciate it.